I didn't plan to cry that day. I told myself that while I was getting ready in my bathroom, staring at my reflection under fluorescent lights that made every tired line on my face impossible to ignore. I told myself this was his day, my father's retirement, 42 years at the same company, decades of overtime, missed birthdays, canceled vacations. This ceremony wasn't about me. Still, my hands shook as I pinned my hair back. I chose a navy blue dress, professional, understated, the kind of dress women wear when they want to disappear into respectability, when they want to be seen as appropriate, not emotional. I'd bought it 2 weeks earlier after my mother told me, very clearly, just don't make it about yourself, as if I ever had. The drive to the hotel took 40 minutes. I remember every traffic light because at each one a different memory surfaced. Waiting in my childhood bedroom for my parents to come home from my brother's baseball games, standing alone at high school graduation while they searched the crowd for my cousins, hearing, "You're independent, you don't need us," so often that it stopped sounding like praise. By the time I parked, my chest already hurt. The venue was elegant, white tablecloths, soft golden lighting, a banner with my father's name printed in bold letters above the stage. I stood near the entrance for a moment, adjusting my purse strap, steadying my breath. Then I saw them. My parents stood near the front, laughing with people in tailored suits. My brother was there too, Daniel, golden boy, shoulders broad, confidence effortless. His wife clung to his arm, her manicured hand flashing diamonds whenever she laughed. They didn't see me at first. I walked closer. My mother spotted me eventually. Her smile faltered. Not disappeared, just recalibrated. She leaned toward my father and whispered something. He turned, eyes flicking over me quickly, then nodded. No hug, no, "you made it," just a brief, polite smile, the kind reserved for distant acquaintances. "Hi," I said, forcing warmth into my voice. "You're late," my mother replied, glancing at her watch. "I'm actually 15 minutes early." "Well, everyone else is already seated." She said it like a correction, like I'd failed some invisible test. I scanned the room. Every table near the stage was full. Reserved signs sat neatly placed. My brother and his wife had seats in the front row. My parents had a table directly beneath the podium. There was no chair for me. "I didn't see my name," I said quietly. My mother sighed, the way she used to when I asked too many questions as a child. "We didn't think you'd want to sit up front. You're not really involved with all this." All this. My father cleared his throat. "You can sit anywhere, sweetheart. It's just a ceremony." Just a ceremony. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat, and walked toward the back of the room. The only available seat was near the service doors, beside a table stacked with unused programs and water pitchers. I sat down anyway. The lights dimmed. Applause rippled across the room as the host took the stage. Names were announced, achievements listed. Laughter followed stories from decades past, inside jokes, shared memories I'd never been part of. I clapped when everyone else did. I smiled when appropriate. I folded my hands in my lap and tried not to feel like I was slowly shrinking. Then came the speeches. My father stood when his name was called. The room erupted in applause. He looked proud, taller somehow, important. I felt a familiar ache, love tangled with grief. "This company has been my life," he began. "But of course, none of it would have been possible without my family." My heart lifted, just slightly. "My wife," he said, gesturing to my mother, "who held everything together." Applause. "My son Daniel,"
he continued, smiling broadly, who makes me proud every single day. Louder applause. I waited. He paused, looked out over the room, and, well, he chuckled, that's about it. Laughter filled the space. I didn't breathe. Someone near the front shouted, "No daughters?" My father laughed again, waving a dismissive hand. "Oh, she's independent. Always has been. Not really the sentimental type." The room chuckled politely. My mother smiled. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I stared at the table in front of me, vision blurring. The words echoed in my head. Not really the sentimental type. As if my feelings were an inconvenience. As if I was a footnote not worth mentioning. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I sat there while my father finished his speech, while awards were handed out, while people stood and clapped and toasted a man who had never once stood up for me. Then something unexpected happened. The host returned to the stage, smiling. "And now," he said, "before we conclude, our CEO asked for a moment." A murmur rippled through the crowd. The CEO? I straightened unconsciously. A man in his late 50s stepped up to the podium, calm, commanding, the kind of presence that made rooms listen before he spoke. He adjusted the microphone. "Today isn't just about celebrating a career," he said. "It's about acknowledging impact, legacy." He gestured toward a table near the stage, where several folders were neatly stacked. "We asked each retiree to submit a brief file, career highlights, milestones, personal contributions." My father nodded confidently. The CEO picked up the top folder. "I'll start with this one." He opened it. Then he frowned. He flipped a page. Silence stretched. "This appears to be incomplete." The room grew still. He looked up. "There's a second folder attached." He reached beneath the first and lifted another, thicker, heavier. My heart began to race. "I wasn't aware of this submission," the CEO said slowly, "but after reviewing it this morning, I felt it deserved recognition." He cleared his throat. "This file documents a series of consulting projects conducted over the last 10 years, off the books, unpaid, external." Whispers spread. My father's smile faltered. The CEO continued, "These projects directly saved the company over $12 million. The room gasped. My hands went numb. The consultant declined credit, declined compensation, requested anonymity. The CEO paused, eyes scanning the audience. "But today, I think it's time we acknowledge her." Her. My breath caught. He looked straight at me. "Miss Evelyn Carter, would you please come forward?" The world tilted. Every head turned. My mother froze. My brother stared. My father went pale. I couldn't move. The CEO smiled gently. "You're not listed on the program, but you should have been." The room erupted into applause. My legs trembled as I stood. I walked toward the stage, each step heavy with disbelief. As I reached the podium, my father whispered, barely audible, "What is this?" I met his eyes, and for the first time in my life, I didn't apologize. The applause didn't fade quickly. It rolled through the room in waves, echoing off the chandeliers, bouncing off white tablecloths and stunned faces. I stood at the edge of the stage, hands clasped in front of me, heart pounding so loudly I was certain the microphone could pick it up. The CEO stepped slightly aside, giving me space, my space. "For those unfamiliar," he said calmly, Ms. Evelyn Carter has been quietly advising multiple departments over the last decade: risk mitigation, process redesign, crisis response. Most of her work occurred outside standard reporting channels. I heard my mother inhale sharply. My father didn't look at me. He stared at the floor. I found her name referenced in at least 19 internal memos, the CEO continued, always credited as external consultant. No photograph, no biography, no invoice. A ripple of confusion spread through the audience. I requested the full archive, he said. What I found was extraordinary. He turned to me. Evelyn, would you like to say something? The microphone felt heavier than it should have when I took it.
I hadn't prepared for this. I hadn't imagined this moment, not once in my life. My pulse thundered in my ears. My father's colleagues, people who had known him for decades, were staring at me now. I didn't expect to be called up here, I began, my voice steady despite everything. And I didn't submit that folder. A murmur swept the room. I did the work because it mattered, because I believed in solving problems, and because I was asked. The CEO nodded. She was, he confirmed, repeatedly. My father finally looked up. His face was a mix of confusion and something else. Fear, maybe? Or realization. 10 years ago, the CEO said, our company faced a compliance issue that could have resulted in federal penalties. My stomach tightened. That solution, he added, holding up a page, came from Evelyn. My father shook his head slightly. No, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. I swallowed. That was the first time, I said quietly. After that, the calls didn't stop. I didn't look at my parents when I spoke. I couldn't. Instead, I focused on the back of the room, the exit I'd almost taken earlier, the door I'd nearly walked through to escape. They said it would be easier if I stayed unofficial, I went on. Cleaner, less complicated. The CEO leaned closer to the microphone. Do you know who first made that recommendation? Silence. My father stiffened. The CEO turned to him, not accusing, just observant. You did, he said. Gasps. My mother stood abruptly. That's not... The CEO raised a hand. Please, let her finish. I finally turned. My father looked older in that moment than I'd ever seen him, smaller, like the air had been pulled out of him. You said it would protect me, I said, my voice trembling for the first time. You said the company didn't take young women seriously, that I'd be chewed up. My mother whispered, we were trying to help. By erasing me? I asked. The room was painfully quiet now. I remembered that night clearly. I'd been 24, fresh out of grad school, sitting at their kitchen table while my father laid out the plan like a favor. You're talented, Ev, but you don't want the spotlight. Let me handle the politics. And I'd believed him. I trusted you, I said. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. The CEO cleared his throat. Evelyn's recommendations prevented layoffs during 3 major restructures, he said. She identified vulnerabilities that external auditors missed. She saved this company millions. He paused. And yet, he added, her name never appeared on a single official record. He turned to the audience. Today, that changes. Applause erupted again, louder, more deliberate. People stood. Some looked stunned. Others looked ashamed. I stepped back from the microphone, hands shaking. My brother didn't clap. He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. After the ceremony ended, the room buzzed with energy. Conversations overlapped. People craned their necks to catch glimpses of me. I wanted to disappear. The CEO approached as I stepped down from the stage. "You did exceptional work," he said quietly, "and you did it without recognition. That's rare." "I didn't know how else to do it," I replied. He nodded. "I'd like to talk about correcting that." Before I could respond, my mother intercepted us. "Evelyn," she said sharply, her smile strained, "we need to speak, now." The CEO glanced at me. "We'll continue this later." I followed my mother toward a quiet corner near the restrooms. My father trailed behind. Daniel hovered awkwardly a few steps back. "What was that?" my mother demanded in a low voice. "The truth," I said. "You embarrassed your father," she snapped. I laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. He embarrassed himself. "That file, why would you keep something like that?" she pressed. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I didn't keep it. I didn't even know it existed." My father spoke then, his voice hoarse. "You went behind my back." I stared at him. "I did exactly what you asked me to do." "That wasn't meant to be permanent," he said. "It lasted 10 years," I said softly. Daniel finally stepped forward. "You could have said something." "I did," I replied, "over and over. You just weren't listening." My mother shook her head. "This isn't how family handles things." "No," I said, "this is how you handle things." She recoiled, as if slapped. I left them there. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I walked steadily toward the exit, my chest tight, but my spine straight. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin. I leaned against the wall, breathing deeply, grounding myself. "Evelyn." I turned. The CEO stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I will be," I said. He studied me for a moment. "I want to offer you a position, official, public, with authority." My breath caught. "You don't have to answer tonight," he added, "but I think it's time your work had a name." I nodded slowly. "Thank you," I said, "for seeing me." He smiled. "I should apologize. It took us too long." As he walked away, my phone buzzed. A message from my father. "We need to talk. You owe us an explanation." I stared at the screen. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to respond. I slipped the phone back into my purse. Inside the ballroom, laughter resumed. Glasses clinked. The celebration continued. But something fundamental had shifted. They couldn't unsee me now, and neither could I. I walked to my car under the glow of streetlights, replaying the evening in my mind. The folder, the silence, the moment my name was spoken aloud in a room that had never saved a chair for me. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, from an unknown number. "We've been looking for you for years. Call me." My heart skipped. I stared at the words, unease creeping in. Who else knew? And what else had been hidden in that folder? I didn't call the number that night. I stared at the message in my car for a long time, the engine humming softly, the parking lot slowly emptying as guests drove away laughing, oblivious to the fact that my entire life had just cracked open. "We've been looking for you for years." Years. If this were a movie, I would have dialed immediately, demanded answers, uncovered the conspiracy in one dramatic scene. But real life doesn't work that way, especially when you've spent decades learning how dangerous attention can be. So I drove home. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the folder in the CEO's hands, thick, heavy, like a ledger of a life I'd lived in secret. A version of me my parents had edited down to nothing. At 4:12 a.m., I finally gave up and made coffee. My phone buzzed again at 7:03. Same number.
I understand if you're cautious, but what happened last night wasn't an accident. My chest tightened. I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight filtering through the blinds, and typed one word. "Who is this?" The response came instantly. "Someone who tried to hire you. Someone your father redirected." My fingers went cold. I stared at the screen, memories rearranging themselves in my mind like puzzle pieces snapping into place. The interviews that went nowhere, the emails that were never answered, the opportunities that seemed to evaporate just before they reached me. I typed again. "Call me." The phone rang less than a second later. "Evelyn," a woman's voice said, calm, professional, older than me. "Thank you for answering." "Who are you?" I asked. "My name is Marissa Klein. I'm a senior partner at a private advisory firm in Boston." I frowned. "I've never applied to—" "You didn't," she interrupted gently. "We found your work through internal corporate channels, white papers, crisis response drafts, anonymous submissions that were, frankly, brilliant." My stomach dropped. "We reached out through official pathways," she continued. "Your father responded." I closed my eyes. "He said you weren't available," she said, "that you weren't interested in leadership roles, that you preferred to stay invisible." Invisible. The word landed like a bruise. "How many times?" I asked quietly. There was a pause. "5," she said. "Over 6 years." My grip tightened around the phone. "Why are you contacting me now?" I asked. "Because last night," she said, "your name was finally spoken out loud." I let out a shaky breath. "We'd like to make you an offer," she continued, "but before that, I think you deserve to know what was taken from you." After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. 5 opportunities. 5 versions of my life that never happened. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt something worse. Clarity. My parents called 3 times that day. I didn't answer. Daniel texted once. "Did you really do all that?" I typed back, "Yes." He didn't respond. At noon, my doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I even stood up. My mother looked composed when I opened the door, hair perfect, expression carefully neutral. My father stood beside her, shoulders stiff, hands clenched. "We need to talk," my mother said. I stepped aside. They sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd celebrated promotions no one acknowledged, the same table where I'd eaten birthday cake alone more than once. My father didn't look at me. "You humiliated us," my mother began. I laughed. I couldn't help it. "No," I said, "I told the truth." "You blindsided your father in front of his colleagues," she snapped. "He erased me in front of them first," I replied. My father finally spoke. "You could have come to us." "I did," I said, "for 10 years." He shook his head. "You don't understand how things work." I leaned forward. "Then explain it to me." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I was protecting you." "From what?" I asked. "Success?" "From disappointment," he said sharply, "from being torn apart." I stared at him. "You didn't protect me, you controlled me." Silence. My mother crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic."
That old word. "I got a call this morning," I said calmly. Both of them stiffened. "A senior partner at a firm in Boston," I continued. "She said she tried to hire me 5 times." My father's face drained of color. "You answered for me," I said. "Didn't you?" He didn't respond. "You told them I wasn't interested," I pressed, "that I wanted to stay invisible." My mother stood. "That's enough." "No," I said, standing too. "This is enough." My father finally looked at me, really looked. "I did what I thought was best," he said quietly. "For who?" I asked. He didn't answer. "I lost years," I said, "not because I wasn't good enough, but because you decided I shouldn't be seen." My mother grabbed her purse. "We didn't raise you to be ungrateful." I felt something in me finally snap, not loudly, not violently, but completely. "You didn't raise me," I said. "You contained me." They left without another word. I locked the door behind them. Then I slid down against it and cried, not out of sadness, but out of release. 2 days later, I sat across from the CEO in a glass-walled conference room. "We've completed a preliminary review," he said, sliding a document toward me. "And there are concerns." I raised an eyebrow. "Concerns about me?" "Concerns about how your work was handled," he clarified. "Specifically, how it was hidden." My heart pounded. "There are emails," he said. "Approvals that were overridden, credits reassigned." "To my father?" I asked. He hesitated. "Indirectly." I exhaled slowly. "We're opening a formal internal investigation," he said, "and I want you involved." "In what capacity?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "As yourself." The offer he made was generous, transparent, public. For the first time, my name would be on the door. I asked for 1 day to think. That night, Marissa emailed me a contract draft. It was everything I'd ever wanted: leadership, equity, autonomy, a life that didn't require permission. I stood at my window, city lights blinking in the distance, weighing the past against the future. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my father. "If you take this any further, you'll destroy everything I built." I stared at the message. Then I typed back, "You already destroyed something. It just wasn't yours." I blocked his number. The investigation moved quickly, too quickly. Within a week, HR requested a formal statement from me. Then legal followed, then compliance. The deeper they dug, the uglier it became. My work had been repackaged, presented as team output, my father's name attached to outcomes I had engineered alone. He hadn't just hidden me, he had used me. The CEO called me into his office late one evening. "This is bigger than we thought," he said. "How big?" I asked. He met my eyes. "Big enough that your father won't be retiring quietly." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with inevitability. "What happens next?" I asked. He leaned back. "That depends on you." That night, I opened the original folder the CEO had given me access to. Every project, every memo, every quiet contribution. My life, documented. At the very bottom was a file I hadn't seen before. Correspondence, personal. I clicked it open and froze. The first email wasn't from the company. It was from my mother. I stared at the screen until the letters stopped looking like words and started looking like wounds. The email was dated 11 years ago. Before the first unpaid project, before the late-night calls, before my father's quiet rise accelerated in ways no one could quite explain. From Margaret Carter. To Compliance Liaison. Subject: External Consultant Attribution. My mother. I scrolled. Please remove Evelyn from any formal documentation. She prefers privacy and does not want her name associated with internal decision-making. My husband will handle communication going forward. I felt dizzy. This wasn't passive. This wasn't ignorance. This was coordination.
Another email followed, then another. A chain of polite, carefully worded messages, all saying the same thing in different ways. She doesn't need credit. She's happier behind the scenes. I pushed back from my desk and stood up too fast. The room spun. I pressed my palm against the window until the cold glass steadied me. My mother hadn't just stood by. She had helped build the cage. I sat back down and kept reading. There were notes, calendar invites declined on my behalf, introductions rerouted, invitations to panels quietly canceled. Every time someone tried to pull me into the light, my mother stepped in, smiling, smoothing things over. Evelyn gets overwhelmed. She's not ambitious like that. She doesn't want to compete. I felt sick. I remembered dinners where my mother told relatives, "She's brilliant, but she doesn't like attention." I'd believed it. I'd absorbed it like a diagnosis. Maybe I didn't like attention.
Or maybe I'd been taught it was dangerous. My phone buzzed. The CEO. "Have you seen it?" he asked. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded far away. "There's more," he said gently. "Legal wants to know how you want to proceed." I closed my eyes. Proceed. Such a clean word for something that would blow up an entire family. "What are my options?" I asked. He paused. "Formally, this constitutes misrepresentation and credit appropriation. If you file a complaint, it becomes public." Public. My father's reputation, my mother's carefully curated image, Daniel's pride in being the successful one, and me, no longer the quiet daughter in the background. "What if I don't?" I asked. "Then we still correct the record internally," he said, "but there are no consequences beyond that." I thought of the 5 lost opportunities, the years of shrinking myself, the nights I'd cried alone, convinced I wasn't enough. "I need time," I said. "You have it," he replied, "but not forever." I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly, letting muscle memory guide me through streets I'd known since childhood. Without realizing it, I ended up parked across from my parents' house. The lights were on. For a moment, I considered driving away. Then I got out of the car. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She looked prepared, as if she'd been expecting this. "You saw the emails," she said. It wasn't a question. I walked past her into the living room. My father sat on the couch, hands folded, posture rigid. He didn't look surprised either. "So," I said, "you both knew?" My mother closed the door. "We did what we thought was right." "For whom?" I asked. She sighed. "For you." I laughed bitterly. "You don't get to say that anymore." My father stood. "This doesn't have to turn into a spectacle." "A spectacle?" I repeated. "You turned my life into a footnote." My mother's voice sharpened. "We protected you from disappointment." "No," I said. "You protected yourselves from being outshone." Her face hardened. "You were always sensitive," she snapped. "Always needed validation." "And you were always afraid," I shot back. "Afraid of what people would think if your daughter surpassed you." Silence fell like a dropped plate. Daniel appeared in the hallway, drawn by the raised voices. "What's going on?" he asked. I turned to him. "Did you know?" He hesitated. That was answer enough. You knew, I said softly. He looked down. Dad said it was complicated. I nodded slowly. It always is when you're benefiting. My mother stepped between us. This family doesn't air its problems in public. I met her gaze. This family doesn't get to decide that anymore. My father clenched his jaw. If you file that complaint, you'll face consequences, I finished. I know. You'll ruin everything I worked for, he said. I took a breath. You built it on my back. Daniel looked at me then, really looked. What do you want? He asked quietly. I thought about that. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want apologies that came too late. I want the truth, I said, and I want my name back. I slept at a hotel that night. In the morning, I met Marissa in person for the first time. She was exactly as I'd imagined, sharp, composed, eyes that missed nothing. You've been underestimated your entire life, she said, after I finished telling her everything. Yes, I replied. She slid the contract toward me. Come work with us. We won't hide you. I signed. Something in me exhaled. The internal investigation concluded faster than expected. Too many receipts, too many emails, too many people willing to talk once the silence broke. My father was placed on administrative leave. The retirement celebrations suddenly felt ironic. My mother stopped calling. Daniel sent one message. I didn't realize how bad it was. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not yet. The company issued a correction memo, formal, precise, devastating. My name appeared everywhere it should have been for years. Emails flooded in, apologies, congratulations, invitations. It was overwhelming, but for the first time, it was real. The CEO called me into his office one last time. We're making this public next week, he said. Press, board, everything. I nodded. I didn't respond. Not yet. The company issued a correction memo, formal, precise, devastating. My name appeared everywhere it should have been for years. Emails flooded in, apologies, congratulations, invitations. It was overwhelming, but for the first time, it was real. The CEO called me into his office one last time. We're making this public next week, he said. Press, board, everything. I nodded. You'll be asked to speak, he added. My chest tightened. About what? About your work, he said, and about what happens when talent is buried. I agreed. That night, I stood in my apartment surrounded by half-packed boxes. Boston awaited. A new life. A clean break. My phone buzzed. One last message. From my mother. If you do this, don't come back. I stared at the screen. Then I typed. I already left. I blocked her number. The day of the press conference arrived. Cameras, reporters, bright lights. I stood at the podium, my name displayed clearly in front of me. I spoke calmly, honestly, about work, about systems, about how easily voices are erased when it's convenient. I didn't name my parents. I didn't have to. The questions came anyway. Did your family know? I paused. Yes, I said. Do you regret speaking up? I shook my head. I regret staying silent. Applause followed. Somewhere in the crowd, I saw Daniel, alone. Afterward, as I stepped off the stage, the CEO leaned toward me. There's one more thing, he said quietly.
Legal uncovered a final document.
My stomach dropped. What kind of document? He handed me a sealed envelope. Something your father filed years ago, he said. It never went through. I opened it and felt my breath leave my body. It was a formal recommendation. For me. Submitted, then withdrawn. At the bottom was a handwritten note. She's not ready. I looked up. The CEO met my eyes. This changes things. How? I asked. He exhaled slowly. It proves intent. The room seemed to tilt. What happens now? I whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Now, he said, you decide whether this ends with accountability or absolution. I stared at the paper, at the proof, at the choice. I didn't open the envelope again that night. I already knew what it said. The words had burned themselves into me the first time I read them. She's not ready. A sentence so small, so neat, so devastating in its quiet authority. A sentence that had rerouted an entire life. Instead, I placed the document on my kitchen counter, face down, like a sleeping animal I wasn't sure I wanted to wake again. Boston waited. In 48 hours, I would be on a train heading north, toward a job that didn't require permission, toward a city where no one knew me as the quiet one, or the daughter who didn't need much, a city where my name would be introduced without an asterisk. But the envelope followed me everywhere, into my dreams, into the shower, into the pauses between breaths. Accountability or absolution? That was the choice the CEO had given me. Not revenge, not forgiveness, something cleaner, something harder. I poured a glass of water and stood at the window, watching the city pulse below. Somewhere across town, my parents were likely doing the same things they always did, tidying, rehearsing explanations, convincing themselves they were misunderstood. I thought about how easy it would be to let the company handle it, to accept the internal correction, the public acknowledgement, the quiet removal of my father from the narrative, to leave town and never look back. I also thought about the next woman, the one who would be told she was better behind the scenes, the one whose work would be handled for her. By morning, my decision was made. The board meeting was closed door. No cameras, no press. Just long wood tables, careful voices, and the weight of a decade of omissions. I sat across from them, spine straight, hands calm. The envelope lay open in front of me now, the handwritten note visible to everyone. Thank you for coming, the chair said. We understand you've reviewed the final document? Yes, I replied. And you wish to proceed? I took a breath. I wish to tell the truth. There was a pause, a nod. I spoke plainly about the work, about the recommendations that bore other names, about the calls redirected, the invitations declined on my behalf, the opportunities withdrawn without my consent. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize. I didn't need to. When I finished, the room was silent. The chair cleared his throat. This indicates deliberate suppression. Yes, I said, over many years. And you're requesting... I looked down at the envelope one last time, then back up. I'm requesting that the record be corrected fully, I said, that my work be attributed accurately, that any promotions or recognitions derived from it be reevaluated. And your father? I felt the question land, heavy and inevitable. I'm not asking for punishment, I said carefully. I'm asking for accountability. The distinction mattered. After the meeting, the CEO walked me to the elevator. "You realize what this will do," he said gently. "Yes?" He nodded. "For what it's worth, you handled this with integrity." The elevator doors closed. I exhaled for the first time all day. The announcement came a week later. Corporate language, clean lines, no emotional adjectives. Following an internal review, the company has updated its historical records to reflect accurate authorship and contribution. Certain leadership acknowledgments have been rescinded pending further evaluation. My father's name disappeared from several case studies. Mine appeared. The media noticed. So did everyone else. Emails poured in, not just congratulations, but confessions. Quiet messages from people who had watched it happen and said nothing, who had benefited from the system without questioning it. I read them all. I didn't reply to most. My father resigned. Not publicly dramatic, not tearful. A brief statement, a desire to spend more time with family. My mother called once. I didn't answer. Daniel emailed. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied. "One coffee. Neutral ground." We met at a small cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. He looked smaller somehow, less certain. "I didn't know how bad it was," he said after a while. "I believe you," I replied. And I did. "I should have asked more questions," he said. "I should have listened." "Yes," I agreed. He nodded, eyes wet. "Are you leaving?" "Yes." "For good?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But for now." He swallowed. "I'm proud of you." It landed differently than it would have years ago. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. Boston felt like a beginning. New apartment, new office, my name on the door in clean black letters. Not as an exception, not as a favor, just there. The work was challenging, visible, mine. I spoke on panels, led teams, made decisions that carried weight, and when they did, my name carried it too. One afternoon, months later, I received a forwarded email from legal. Inquiry regarding a former suppression case, requesting comment. I closed the message without replying. Some stories didn't need retelling. I visited my parents' house once more before winter, not to reconcile, not to accuse, to collect the rest of my things. My mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Older, tired. "You got what you wanted," she said. I shook my head. "I got what I earned." She looked away. "I hope it was worth it," she murmured. I met her gaze. It was. Inside my old bedroom, I found a box tucked beneath the bed. Childhood notebooks, old essays, a college acceptance letter I didn't remember showing them. At the bottom was a folded note in my father's handwriting. "I worry you'll outgrow us." I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of that sentence settling gently this time. Maybe I had, and maybe that was okay. On my last night in town, I walked past the hotel where the retirement ceremony had been held. The lights were on again. Another event, another celebration. I paused on the sidewalk, remembering the chair that hadn't been saved for me. Then I kept walking. A year later, I stood at another podium. Different city, different audience. Someone introduced me, not with qualifiers, not with context, but simply by my name and my work. I spoke about systems, about transparency, about what happens when credit is treated like currency instead of truth. At the end, a young woman approached me. "They told me I should stay behind the scenes," she said quietly, "that it would be easier." I smiled gently. "Easier for whom?" She laughed, a little startled. "For them." "Then you have your answer," I said. That night, alone in my apartment, I placed the old envelope into a drawer. Not hidden, just finished. I wasn't the daughter who needed permission anymore. I wasn't the consultant without a name. I was the woman who chose visibility,
not because I craved it, but because I deserved it. And this time, when I took my seat at the table, no one questioned why I was there, because the chair had my name on it. If you love stories with strong women and real consequences, subscribe now.